there are a lot of celebrations in the Hispanic or Latino culture. One of the biggest one is December 12th, Virgin de Guadalupe. And we told the story in the beginning. It was the Juan Diego when he saw her, and it became a big thing where people actually go for pilgrimage at that day to where she is and for the church that she is. It's December 12th. And then we have All Saints Day. And by the way, the Hispanics or Latinos are named after saints. So every saint has a day, and there is a day where, like, for example, like a month ago, there was St. Joseph Day. And my husband's name is Joseph, so it was his day. St. Joseph, every saint has to do something with health. Like, for example, Lady de Lourdes has to do with illnesses. St. Joseph has to do with death. So it just, every single one has to do with a different remedy or a different disease or issue, health issue. And then we have Las Posadas. Las Posadas is December 16. And what happens is kind of like when the little kids go from door to door on Halloween, they do that and they keep knocking at doors. Basically, Posadas means inn, like a hotel or a place to be there. They keep knocking at doors and to find a place to lodge Jesus and Mary. And if they knock and they don't open the door, they don't let them in, and at the end, the door that opens is the place where they actually have a celebration. And it's a big celebration with a lot of typical food, music, and drinks, and all that. It's huge. It's on December 16th. And then comes, of course, La Noche Buena, which is more or less Christmas. And in a lot of Hispanic and Latinos, I mean, you will always find a huge nativity scene. You might not find a tree, but you will find a nativity scene. Natividad. And then every single country has its own Independence Day. And that they usually are between September and October. That's why the Hispanic Heritage Month, it's between September 15 and October 15 every year. Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo is, it marks the day of the Battle of La Puebla, when actually the French went out of Mexico. And then there is Dia de la Raza. Dia de la Raza, it celebrates the like the marriage of the indigenous people and the Spaniards. So it's Dia de la Raza. It's usually October 12th. In Mexico, it's celebrated on October 9th. But here in the States, it's celebrated October 12th. The birthdays are huge, especially for little children. And they are like any other birthday with cakes and people, but also they have always piñatas. And we all know what a piñata is, right? Okay. And then a big, huge celebration in the Hispanic or Latinos is the Quinceaneras. Quinceaneras is the 15 years old. It's exactly like in the Jewish religion, what is bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. The Jewish religion, they do it at 13 years old, and it's usually, now they're starting to do the bat mitzvah for the girls, but the bar mitzvah is for a child or a boy that is passing through the doors of manhood at 13 years old. They do it for the Latinas, the girls, teenagers at 15 years old, and it's a huge celebration. Like you could see, they have, I mean, it's like basically a small wedding. And when she has to have a chamberlain that will actually teach her how to dance for that day. It's a huge celebration. She's like a queen that day. And they have a lot of food, a lot of people. And she has 14 girls behind her. And the 14 girls, one for each year of her life. 14 years. And then the girls have 14 boys on the other side. And then she has a chamberlain that actually will assist her like a bride passing through. And she has also the godfather and the godmother and the whole family. It's a big, big celebration, but it's huge. And you will hear a lot of people like that will say, oh, I'm not coming to work tomorrow because it's my daughter's quinceañera. And people will not, so what, it's just a birthday. But it's way beyond that in the Hispanic culture. It's hugely important, yes.
I see families going into debt just like they
yes, like for a wedding.
Wedding.
Exactly. You know why? Because it's el honor. It's their pride. It's their honor. It's like they have to show, they have to do it for their daughter in front of everybody else. So quinceañeras are huge in the Hispanic community. And then the weddings. I mean, it's not only they get out of that for quinceaneras, but they just go to weddings. And there are differences between the different Hispanic or Latinos weddings. Like, for example, the people from Mexican origin, they have this rosary that they put on the back of both of them when they kneel in front of the priest. It's not done, because it's very Catholic, but it's not done in other Hispanic weddings. I have seen weddings that are done with this rosary, and I have seen weddings that are not done without that. And it depends on the kind, how accultured they are, so it will depend really, do they have disco, do they have mariachis, do they have like trios? Yeah, it depends really what they have. Bandas, you know, it really depends what they have as music. Depends on their acculturalization of whatever they have. Yes?
Another holiday that seems to be very important is Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
And it seems like it's, and these are the Hispanics from Mexico, they celebrate it here in this country. It seems like it's the Sunday after ours, or
It's
before
always
ours.
May 10th.
May 10th.
May 10th,
Yeah.
is that what it is?
Yes. And it's huge because
I noticed that seems to be very, very.
it is, because the mother is actually the backbone of the family. You know, like, for example, our Mother Day, like in Egypt, is March 21st. So it really depends on the different region. Also, another important celebration is El Dia de las Muertes, and it's November 2nd. It's very close to the Halloween, but actually what they do is like they go to the cemetery and they put bakery and they put other stuff, and especially decorations like skeletons and stuff on these graves. It's a celebration of the dead, more or less. So it's like more or less Halloween and Walking Dead and all that. So but it's just like that's more or less. And also there is the Three Kings. The Three Kings is usually on January 6th, and it marks the 12th day of Christmas. Usually they give gifts, they used to give gifts to the kids on that day, not on Christmas Day. But more and more a culture, they give the children, because everybody wants to have their Christmas gifts on that day. So we see a lot of people that had other traditions, like the Orthodox Christians that have their Christmas on 6th of January because of the kids, and they go to school with all the kids. Now they actually celebrate December 24th, not January 6th. So it's a lot of accurate, being a culture to the country here. Okay, folklore. There is, like I said, there are 26 nations, from Spain to all the Latin countries. So there are a lot of folklore. Music is different, it's totally different. Like if you hear the beat of salsa, it's different than the beat of merengue, it's different than the beat of cumbia, it's different than a flamenco, it's different than a sevillanas. So every single one has a different sound, a different rhythm, a different costume, and a different dance. So, like for example, tango is Argentinian. The carnival dances is Brazilian. The salsa is Cuban. And then we have the cumbia from Colombia. We have music that is the mariachis or the bandas or trios. And then we have castañetas for the flamenco or sevillanas in Spain. And then the folklore also has the saints. So like we said, Lady de Guadalupe is huge. And she's usually a little bit darker than Virgin Mary that we see everywhere, a little bit darker. And this is Juan Diego. And then, with time and myth and folklore, they made humans that are basically monsters or saints or whatever. There is a huge story in the Latino or Hispanic culture. It's called La Llorona. La Llorona is the weeping lady. And the weeping lady comes from a story. It has actually a story, a folkloric story. And they always tell the kids, if you're going to go outside by yourself in the darkness, La Llorona will get you and you will want to come back. And the story of La Llorona is that there was a beautiful, beautiful lady called Maria in a small village. And she had a lot of people coming to ask her hand in marriage. By the way, Hispanic or Latino culture, the guys have to go and actually pedir la mano, meaning like they have to ask for the hand of the female from her father or her brother to ask her for marriage. So they still follow more or less. I mean, it doesn't happen, of course, every day, but at least it's in the culture. So Maria was the most beautiful woman in the village, and whoever came to ask her for marriage, she always refused. She always said that I'm going to marry someone that is cute as a button and very rich. And she wouldn't accept anyone. Finally came a ranchero, a son of a ranchero, to the city, and he was gorgeous. He had like all the money, and he started courting her, but she wouldn't give him the time of the day. He kept trying and trying and trying, and he put in his mind that he's going to marry her. He finally married her. And they got 2 children, a boy and a girl. After a while, the ranchero found that, you know what, I missed a lot by not marrying in my class, in my social class, because he was rich. So he started ignoring her and not knowing her. One day, she was walking with the kids by the lake, and he was passing by in a carreta with his new girlfriend, and he didn't pay attention to her, but only to the kids. She got so upset that she threw the 2 kids in the lake. And they actually drowned. And she did not realize that she did that till they started drowning. So the second morning, someone was passing by and found Maria dead by the lake side. So they buried her that day, and the same night, they started seeing a ghost that was wearing a white gown, the same gown that she was buried in, roaming and actually crying about her kids around that lake. So that's more or less the story. That's why it's called the weeping story. It's a very, morose story, but it's a folkloric story that every single Hispanic I have ever met know the story of La Llorona. So, folk medicine. With folklore comes folk medicine, and they basically depend on curanderos and sobadores. So there are potions that are dead, and then there is the Santeria. We talked about the hot and cold nature of ill and health. They believe that health is a total continuum of the body, the spirit, and the soul together. So they have to make sure that there is always like a circle going by. So that's why the spiritual healing is very important in the Hispanic and Latino community. Mental health and stressors, they will explain them actually as somatic symptoms. So they will explain headaches, anxiety, palpitation, hypertension, rather than tell you that they have a mental problem. Because the mental problems have a huge stigma in the Latino community. And we're going to talk about that when we come to mental health. So they use curanderos, and there are different words that are used for folk medicine. So antojas is basically the cravings of a pregnant woman. And they say if the woman does not take care of her cravings, the baby is going to be born with a defect, including genetic defect. So if she feels like having pickles, you have to give her pickles. Ataque de nervios are dramatic outbursts of negative emotions, and they don't know that it could be something else. It could be schizophrenia, it could be severe OCD, it could be anything. It could be high anxiety, but they say just it's ataque of nervios because stress is so much on us that they are acting out. And then they have obsessions. Empacho, like we said, is the intestinal obstruction. And then there is mal de ojo, or the evil eye. And one of the, if someone is carrying a child, don't say, oh, your child is so beautiful, without touching the baby. Because if you don't touch the baby, you're giving him an evil eye. Envy is big, or mal de ojo is big. It's like when you say someone that, oh, you have all that, but it comes with an envy. So usually, especially, and again, it depends on the different socioeconomical factors, because some people might not even hear about that in the Latino community. They put medals of onyx that will prevent the evil eye. And the Middle East, they make them wear something blue. So it's really different. And one of the folkloric remedies is that they run like an egg over the baby, and then they put it in a ball under the pillow, and if in the morning it's cooked, that means, I still can't wrap my head about it, but it's a folk medicine treatment. If it's cooked, that means that it was an evil eye that is gone. So if you want to compliment a baby that someone is carrying, make sure to touch. Okay?
Up to what age?
a baby, like an infant. Or maybe 3-4 years old. I mean, it's like a small baby with the mother, just kind of like on the pat on the shoulder. I know that here in the United States we have a big thing of not touching children because of the stigma of touching children. But in a lot of cultures, touching children is, I mean, it took me a long time not to touch children when I see them, when I like how they look. I love children, and it took me a long time not to touch them. It's like my husband would have to like actually pull me because it's not. It took me a while to understand it's not proper to touch a child without asking for permission. But because I come from a culture where it's very natural, you know, it's just like you can pick up a child but it just, and I know where you're coming from, but yeah, till like 3, 4, 5. And then nervios is sickness of nerve. Susto is fright of sickness. And fright of sickness meaning, fright sickness, meaning that someone got frightened by something that took them by surprise. So there are certain remedies for it. Part of it is using oil and chili, I believe, like a cross, or someone like you can spill all of a sudden some water on their face, so they get it out of their system. So, believe it or not, we have that in Egypt too. Believe it or not. So yes.
The other day, someone was telling me that susto sometimes is believed to cause diabetes.
You know what? They will try to explain anything that has to do with that with something that they don't have control over it. You know, but it doesn't frighten us. If you get frightened by something, it doesn't cause diabetes. But it's their belief because they have, remember, they have no control over their fate. So they have to find a logical reason why it happened. Because everything is by the hand of God, or you know, or nature. So they have to find something that will make sense to them that caused this disease. But it doesn't. Of course, a frightened, like if you get frightened or startled, it doesn't cause diabetes. No, it doesn't. Diabetes comes, as we know, it's different types, and mostly it's either genes or food.
Well, I know it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that I've heard there's a perception.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You will hear some perceptions that I've never heard about before, for example. But because it really depends on their backgrounds and where they're coming from, and how it makes logical sense to their mind to accept what's going on. You know what I mean? So, like for example, when we come to mental health, it's easier to tell them that you have a chemical imbalance than tell them that you are schizophrenic. You know, because chemical balance is something that is somatic, that is something that they have no control over. It's not like it's something that is crazy. They're not local. You know, but it's something that they have, it's something that is in the body that caused them to have a mental illness. Okay? And then there is the mal puesto, where someone uses witchcraft to put a bad disease on a person with a brujas, with like a witchcraft, and which is like more or less the black magic.